the megacity and university, the investment model of partnership. Dear friends, before discussing this issue, I would like to point out some administrative issues. After the presentation of each of our distinguished speakers, take several questions from the audience, maybe one or two questions, in order to somehow fill our discussion. And we have 3 presentations downloaded to the computer. Each presentation is going to take about 10-15 minutes. And after each of the presentations, please, dear colleagues, if you have any questions, we will be happy to answer them. So, we have at our session distinguished experts in education. I wouldn't be afraid of calling them all the distinguished experts. Let me be brief in introducing them. Everyone is going to introduce themselves. Dr. Martin Hinul, the head of the business development, the economy of knowledge, Leuven, Belgium Economic University, which is interesting. Dr. Hinul participated in the projects connected of cooperation between this city and university on both sides, on the side of the administration of the city and administration on the side of the university, and achieved in this cluster of university management great things that we are going to ask him to share with us. Konstantin Isakovich Sonin, professor of Chicago University and higher schools of economics. It will be very interesting to get to know your opinion about the development of university in the mega city, what is important and which questions should the university to answer in front of the city, how the city should facilitate the development of university. Alevtina Anatolievna Chernikova, rector of the National University of Science and Technology, Mrs., the doctorate in science, which is interesting. Mrs. is one of the key participants of program, our national Russian program, which is called 500, is taking the leading position in this program. And step by step, year by year, is becoming the university of international level. It will be interesting to get to know how you, Alevtina Anatolievna, see the development of cooperation between the city administration and the university, which is in the center of the capital. But before getting down to the question to the participants, I would like to give you the main flavor, to show different slides and to ask different questions. Now, we're at the Urban Forum. Urban Forum mostly touches upon such general urban development issues. There have been many issues on different sessions on the urban development, on the transportation infrastructure development, on the development of different kinds of construction infrastructure, so on and so forth. The question is, can the city survive? Can the modern city, mega city, survive without high-quality universities of international level? And we have tried to prepare a number of provocative comparisons. Let's remember quite recent, couple of decades, maybe 30 years, Detroit and Boston in America used to be comparable cities in terms of the industrial, intellectual development, and the cities were comparable megacities. What happened to Detroit after, in fact, the industry left the city? The reduction in the population, higher crime rate, the reduction in income among the population. What happened to Boston after that? The increase in population, the higher income for the population. From our perspective, one of the key elements of such strategic difference factors of those cities' developments is in the following fact that in one city there are more than 50 higher units of schools, and 3 are in top 200 global ratings in Detroit. This intellectual infrastructure, educational intellectual infrastructure, was not in place, which led to such very negative results. As of today, at Urban Forum, today and yesterday, many of the participants have heard, and yesterday we have a very tough discussion between the mayor of the city, Mr. Sobyanin, and Alexei Kudrin. Kudrin said that there had to be some barriers of limits of megacity development, particularly in Russia. Sobyanin said that it is against the nature of the development. Moscow and other megacities should be considered as locomotives of the national development and the state development. But along with that, the main issues which have been discussed over these 2 days, they mostly are about infrastructure development. The development of construction industry, renovation program, the transport availability, transport my street program, everything is aimed at infrastructure development. And we see less talks about the strategy of the city around the human capital. And from our perspective, particularly the development of human capital is the prerequisite of such a strategic flexibility for the economy, which firstly gives the direct impact. In many megacities, in Moscow, universities are big enterprises which provide jobs, which give the investment in infrastructure, which provide the investment in infrastructure, but particularly the belt of universities, these megacities, provide for the development of education among the population, attracting high quality and effective people from other regions and not from the regions of the country, providing for the development of innovations and providing for the better urban development in terms of environment. They enhance the social environment of the city. In some respect, the leading universities, global universities, can articulate the profit and benefit for the regional economy. Very often, it is believed on the national level that the return on investment in universities shouldn't be taken into account. From our perspective, this is a big question, one of the questions which should be asked and elaborated on during today's session, and the return on investment in universities cannot be taken into account directly as a return on investment when we talk about some different business projects, but there is an existing huge number of indirect or relevant effects which in the long run can provide a positive effect and impetus for the urban infrastructure development. Here we have some figures on the slide, and according to our statistics, there is a benchmark, global benchmark, that every ruble or dollar invested in higher schooling, in universities, colleges, gives about 10 rubles. Another important issue which I would like to mention, particularly in the university environment, the campuses, we see innovations developments, new startups developing. You know that the Russian government and Moscow city administration pays huge attention to the issue of innovation activity development in the territory of the city. But I would like to mention the following thing. What do we see? Mostly the investment allocated in this area are aimed at the infrastructure development. For instance, we're building a huge number of technological parks. The technological parks, to a particular period of time, is a necessary foundation which is to exist, but to fill these technoparks with innovative startups which are going to generate the corresponding benefit. And you can see from this slide all the leading companies, high-tech companies, Cisco, Google, Intel, and Video, they emerged from small university startups, from university teams. This effect should be taken into account when estimating the effect of investment in university. Another interesting statistics which I would like to share with you. Over the last 2 days we have heard often that Moscow, as a leading megacity of Russia, is competing on global level with other megacities. New York, Paris, London, Singapore, Tokyo. But if we take a look from the perspective of statistics, in every such kind of city, we see the presence of a big number of universities, which is quite relevant for Moscow as well. In Moscow, we have more than 30 universities, or even more than 40 universities. But along with that, in modern megacities, these are the international level universities. These are universities in all global ratings, taking the leading positions of all these ratings. So correspondingly, they help these cities to attract the talents and create the corresponding social environment. The competitiveness of both cities and universities is explained to what I'm talking about, and particularly by the investment. The budgets of universities, which we see in other mega cities, are not comparable, apart from Moscow State University, with other leading Russian universities. There is a huge gap in place, and this is one of the questions which we'd like to ask the city administration. Maybe the city, as an education, should stimulate the development of city universities and help them to become the international universities. So how is it possible to do? From our perspective, the
city should become qualified or systematic customer for the development of universities in this or that location. Could you show the presentation, but without that information window? So the experience that we can see from other megacities shows that their administrations are actively engaged, on the one hand, as those who incentivize the development of respective universities, and on the other hand, as those who supervise and oversee that the systematic function of the customer is provided. So they consider the return on investment in the wide sense of this word that is received by the territory from the university development. And to become an international level university, those small investments that are done today are not enough. So that is something that I would like to discuss with our distinguished colleagues who are speakers at this round table. And the first question that I would like to ask Martin Hinol, and that will be a question about the interaction of universities and cities as a comprehensive and systematic thing. Martin, you have carried out a successful transformation of a collaboration model of the region on the one hand and university on the other hand, in the era of knowledge economy, as we call it. Could you tell us how you managed to do that, and how you managed to go through this path, and what results you have received? Thank you. And I will now give you the clicker so that you can click through the presentation.
Thank you very much, Yuri, for introducing me. In fact, I'm a physicist, but I love economy. And I'm watching the economy for the last 40 years. A lot has changed. Became global, as we know, not completely, not every day. It became digital, it became flat, etc. It became disruptive, it's quite new. And we saw other phenomena suddenly, and this for the last 3-4 years. I see these mega cities. San Francisco is one of my favorite ones, and I worked quite a bit in Silicon Valley. It started in small towns, Stanford and Mountain View and that kind of stuff, and we built out that famous Silicon Valley. However, today it's San Francisco. The young talent, the entrepreneurs are moving into the city, a mega city, not Moscow, but a big city, and we see something completely new there. I was visiting Uber not so long ago. It's not a rent-a-car company, it's an IT company. We saw thousands and thousands of IT people coming together in San Francisco, and there are more. Last week I was in New York, and they told me that they have 100 incubators installed the last years. 100. It's hard to believe. So it becomes a mega city based more and more on the new economy. A month ago I was in Paris and I visited that famous Station F, the F station. Beyond belief, and the President Macron is putting in billions and billions of them to make from Paris a mega city based on knowledge, not anymore on whatever in Paris. London, phenomenal place, well known for all these things in finance. It's becoming the fintech mecca center in the world. 10,000 of people are going to London and setting up small companies around fintech. Berlin, very similar, and a lot is going on in e-health. And then I put on Moscow, 5 cities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, I'm coming to Moscow for the last 6-7 years, and I see an enormous progress in this city. And I mean that. 6-7 years ago, I said, what is this? Let me stay home. And we just discussed a little bit my first project here. Nevertheless, mega cities is a new phenomenon. But let me come down to earth, and let me come to my own little university, KU Leuven, in a little town, Leuven, 100,000 people, very old city. Most important is that first figure. We are the number 5 from the point of innovative universities. In the world, we are number 1 in Europe. So we did something correct, and all the other figures, just forget them. We have a lot of researchers. We put in a lot of money in research, 500 million euro per year. We have a spin-off called EMEC. We put on also 500 million. So we do in that little town €1 billion in R&D. 20 years ago, when I came back to Leuven, I was working for a long, long time in the United States. I had to do something, so I made a brochure. And this is the cover of the brochure. And I put an old weight and I hang it above Leuven, little town next to Brussels. And I said, this will become the center of knowledge and technology in Europe. And everybody laughed. They said, this Martin Inhulis is crazy. Well, let's see. This was 98. And we said at that time, if we do research, we like to see a return on investment. And we discussed it a couple of minutes ago. Return to make spin-offs, startups. And the director said, every month we make a spin-off. Contract research with the best companies in the world. And we protect our goodies, intellectual property. And we became quite successful with a lot of patents. Little history, the best thing we ever did in Leuven was setting up the brewery, 1366. Today the biggest brewery in the world, AB InBev. In 1425 we set up the university. And there we go. And we have to wait until 1939 in Stanford that there is a Professor Fred Thurman. And for the first time in history, we see the commercialization of research. First time in history. This was also the case in MIT, same time with another guy, Vannevar Bush. We in Leuven had to wait until 72 before we said we have to commercialize the good knowledge which is there. It didn't work so well. We started, as I said, in 98 again. And in 2012, you see, after 40 years, we had 137 spin-offs. We built 300 technology companies. We had 7,000 researchers. We created 7,000 high-tech jobs. We built research parks and incubators and you name it. A snapshot of Leuven, there are top knowledge centers, yes. We build in high-tech industry, yes. We build clusters, very visible clusters in life science, in nanotechnology, in megatronics, in clean tech. More important is we build unbelievable strong technology platforms like CD3. We develop new drugs. And before we go to the industry, the Johnson & Johnson and the GlaxoSmithKline, we bring that molecule as far as we can. We build up the best networks in the world. And we like to scale the Leuven model. And I will tell you a little bit about ELAB. If I come to a region willing to become a knowledge economy region, and I visited many in the world, I look to their knowledge centers. Are they good? I watch carefully to Moscow what is going on here. Do we have that special breed of entrepreneurs? Do we have the money? Can we bring them to the stock market? Do we have the infrastructures? Can we form clusters? Can we attract international companies? Do we have the networks? Can we bring in the government with a lot of goodies? And is the region attractive to quality of life? This is where I judge on. For Leuven these days, yeah, quite well, I must say. We made, in the meantime, hundreds of millionaires, believe it or not. Hundreds of millionaires we made since 98. So it can be done. All researchers, all researchers. This is an important thing. This is an ecosystem of Leuven. You see KU Leuven, the university, and EMEC, spin-off from us, a research center. And via the transfer offices, the TTOs, transfer technology offices, and via the Leuven network, we touch the industry. We touch the industry. This was not the case 20 years ago. We didn't know that there was an industry. Via the science parks, which we built a couple of parks, we touch the region and we make the region very wealthy. Hundreds of millionaires who push back the money in that region. And then, believe it or not, with a small venture fund which we have, we call it GFF, Gamma Frisius, an old scientist from Leuven, and we touch the whole financial world. We can fly to Hong Kong, we can fly to New York, we can fly to London, they know us. Just a couple of figures. 2017, we have 380 companies, among them 150 spin-offs. We turn over 8 billion. That's a lot of money for a little town. And we created 16,000 jobs researchers. It's never seen before in Europe. However, we think it's too small. And we said, let's scale the little model. And we were looking into the direction of Eindhoven, fantastic place in the Netherlands. We were looking into the direction of Aachen, fantastic place in Germany. And if you plot that triangle, we call it the ELAT, Eindhoven, Leuven, Aachen triangle, you won't believe it how rich it is in R&D, in companies, in universities, in business. Hard to believe. I will show you some figures. For example, in Eindhoven, there are the first 6 companies there doing R&D 3 billion euro. 3 billion euro, that is a lot. We do in Leuven 1.3 billion, and so on. So if you take that map, you come to the conclusion that this is the most prosperous region in Europe. That's the reason we go very hard after it. We created several clusters there. This is the one on high-tech systems and materials. What you see in the center is not only Leuven and IMEC, but we say the RWTH in Aachen, the Technical University in Eindhoven. So the nucleus is just phenomenal in knowledge. Then you create in the first circle what we call innovative companies, and in the next circle, mixed innovative companies, and in the third circle, network-related companies. This is an enormous, powerful cluster, and we made 3 of them, and I will show you some figures. An example out of that triangle is quite unique. The company ASML, one of the best companies in the world, I think. They make today 9 billion, 2 billion net, 1.4 billion in R&D. That's the machine they built. Unique machine in the world. These machines go to Intel and TSMC and that kind of thing. The source is to your right, Aachen. We built the source. It produces a bundle of 13.5 nanometers, whatever that is. They spent hundreds of man-years to develop that source. And then the whole thing comes to Leuven in our labs, and we optimize the machine. The cost of a machine, can I have it back? The cost of a machine is 125 million euro. It's a unique machine, thanks to the triangle. We couldn't do it in Leuven or in Aachen. We needed these 3 places. We built 3 clusters, as I said, high-tech systems and materials, food and nutrition, and life sciences. Now, watch the figures. If you see the number of jobs we created in high-tech systems and materials, 289,000. In the meantime, it's more than 300,000. In food and nutrition, we created more than 200,000 jobs. In life sciences, we created more than 50,000 jobs. Altogether, I think today 600,000 top-notch jobs, what I call high added value jobs. Jobs will really bring something to your economy. And I'm listening today and yesterday to your president and to the mayor of Moscow, etc. You need a number of high added value jobs. And I will give you an answer. How many? So if you see what these 3 clusters bring in money, it's 20 billion plus 9 billion plus 3 billion is 32 billion. Believe it or not, it's already 40 billion. 40 billion in return. The population in that little triangle is 6 million, so it's half of Moscow. 6 million. The active population is 2.8 million. It's slow, but I cannot do anything on that. We created 500,000 high added value jobs. That means, and that's the answer for the city of Moscow, 1 out of every 5 jobs is a high added value jobs. Today, it's probably for Moscow 1 out of hundreds. Not enough. This is unique, 1 out of 5. We are not stopping there. So we pump in more and more R&D in the triangle, and we like to go to 1 out of 4. Then we are looking into Silicon Valley, yes, 1 out of 4. Cambridge in the UK, 1 out of 4. Believe it or not, we made calculations. If we read the figure of 1 out of every 4 jobs is a high added value job, then we increase the economic growth increase, a surplus of an extra 2%. Suppose that we will grow now 3–4% economic growth, which is a lot. Europe is not coming to 2. Then we will grow 5–6%. That's the highest you can go. Some characteristics, and then I will stop it, and you can ask me anything. Then what you need is to do that. What we achieved is a critical mass of high-quality multidisciplinary research. High quality and multidisciplinary. That means from the very beginning, we cannot do it in Leuven on our own. We need Aachen, we need Eindhoven. You need the basic instruments. You need some seed capital. We did miracles with that seed capital. You need a patent fund. You need transfer offices. You need state-of-the-art labs. The best are not good enough. And I visited Missy's in December, and I found out that there were excellent labs. And I still remember the physics labs. Outstanding. I was in IBM last week, and we referred to you on the physics which I saw in your place on quantum computing. You need the top labs. You need incubators, accelerators, and research parks. Yes, you need that. You cannot. You need to form clusters, and we discussed that when we came in, so that you get visibility. If I'm saying now Moscow, I don't know, is it IT, is it life sciences, is it materials, what is it? You need visibility, and you can get that through clusters. You need an attractive environment. It should be a very good, attractive place where these young people are willing to come. You attract talent. You like to attract companies, the Googles, the Ciscos all over the world. You need these international companies. If they are not coming, that means that you are not doing well. But if you get a visibility, if you have top people, they will come. And you need to build the best international networks. You cannot do it with Moscow alone. You have to do it with St. Petersburg and Leuven and London and whatever. So this is in a nutshell what I was willing to tell you on Leuven and this little model ELAT.
Большое спасибо, доктор Хинол.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henol. An additional 2 or 3% for economic growth would be something that would be really valuable for Moscow and Russia. Do we have any questions from the audience to Martin? We don't so far? Okay, thank you. Dear Alevtina, Mrs. and National Technological Research University is growing and developing very fast and effectively. It has been doing so in the recent years, and it takes part in the program of enhancing competitiveness. It takes leading positions there, and it has been effectively implementing a lot of projects together with the city. Can you tell us how this interaction is taking place and what the main advantages of a university in the center of the city are, and a university that is developing on the basis of city infrastructure? Thank you, Yuri. First of all, I would like to tell you a couple of words about our university. This year, we are going to celebrate our first centenary, and the team of Mrs. has elaborated innovative projects and great educational and scientific and scholarly projects in these years, and today that is a challenge for us because we need to move on, but being based on the traditions that were laid before us. And coming from the foundation of classical education, our university is dynamically developing innovative scientific and educational center of the country. And sure, the university is trying to focus on the areas that are priorities for itself, and secondly, that we can do well. We do not have a single national task or global task that would be possible to be tackled in professional scientific dimension. That is why multidisciplinary, metadisciplinary cooperation and participation in international level collaborations and mega science projects are extremely important for the university.
Therefore, clarifying our scientific agenda, we have shaped very interconnected breakthrough science. This is the energy of the future, the life quality, green energy, high-tech Moscow, and quantum technology. By the way, so within the research carried out in different universities, Foresight, MIT, revealed that the quantum technologies in the near future are going to develop at a very fast pace, and we foreseen that creating at the basis of our university a quantum center of the international level. Within the focus of our scientists and the rector rate of the university, this is the creation of a new infrastructure and conditions to carry out researches of the international level. And this gave us the opportunity not only to increase the number and quality of the research, but as a result to increase the publications of our scientists. And the most interesting thing to note that over the last 5 years, the quote rate of our scientists has increased 15-fold. But the university requires that if our research promoted further on, turning into innovation projects and allowing for the country, the city, for the world be better and more competitive. The world is changed by the people. That's why within the university we are trying to create the center of attraction for the talents, the best research students of the world and of Russia. 2012, we developed a special program of professional navigation, which aims at the cooperation with the school students of Moscow region, and of all other regions of the Russian Federations and foreign countries. The implementation of the program allowed us to attract to university really talented, very bright and determined, well-prepared students. A number of figures. 2012 adoption gave the 76 universal exam, and in 4 years it increased by 82.7. It means that the university of ours is chosen by more motivated and prepared young people. Every third graduate of school who has become a student of university has the diploma with honors, and more than 1/3 has 260 GPA on the universal exam, unified exam. So it allows to better prepare not only to get into the profession, but to get acquainted with the world of science. The program for competitiveness improvement, which has been mentioned by Yuri, is helping us in this respect, as we see new opportunities to create new, bright research projects. As a result of open international contests, we see not only young, bright students and scientists, but the professionals in their fields of expertise, the best out of them. You see in our lab, one of our labs is headed by Akisoki Inoue. Hershey index is 115. See Dmitry Kolbek, the graduate of MISIS. Now, he's a teacher of our university. He's the head of laboratory for hybrid materials. He's in top 100 most cited materials in the world. Sergei Morozov, according to the results of the last year, is in the list of the most cited scientists of Russia. First of all, this is the new opportunity for our students who can participate in R&D projects and be educated by the best professionals. Of course, the ratings are very important at our university, but nevertheless, we should bear in mind this is the complex assessment at a particular period of time. But nevertheless, this is the signal to the global academia that the research is possible even of an international level. And we are promoting our university in this regard. Up to 2014, we were not present at any international rating, institutional or subject rating. In 2014, for the first time, we were among the best universities of the world and showing the best dynamics. Only 6 universities of Russia are in top 100 subject ratings, 2 or more areas of developments. MIS is in top 30. We're taking this 30th place on QS rating on the mining engineering and top 100 universities on the area of methodology. And the subject to be proud of is that we're the university number 2 in Russia in the material science, and in the world we have 200 plus position. And of course, the university is created for the students. We see young students aged 17, 18 years old, and it is very important for us to help them define the professional choice of theirs. Many years ago, when we were educated, getting one good, high-quality education and convert it into your experience for the whole of life. Now the world is changing so rapidly that we have to learn constantly, and we need to see those young people capable of innovative thinking and ready to respond to the technological challenges of our time. And apart from those scientific laboratories which has been mentioned, Martin, he has visited them. He is quite acquainted with our scientists, the educational engineering centers. We're trying to make the world of science more popular among our students, and not only students of our university, but the students of the whole globe. That's why we're trying to get our projects to the city level, which are quite successful, inviting the students to take part in them. For example, Hackathon Vision Hack, which was carried out together with the cognitive technologies within the framework of this hackathon. Within 48 hours, our students who came from 28 universities of Russia and the world, MIT, Cambridge, Beijing University, MSCU, they found the solution to the tasks set by our business partners. Moreover, Mercury Fair is a fest of makers, which our university is going to hold for the 3rd time, and this year it is going to be held within those dates when our city, our capital, is going to celebrate its City Day in the Gorky Park. So, taking the opportunity, I invite you to participate in this fest, in the panel discussions, in the master classes. It's going to be very interesting, and this interest starts with those 2 or 3 young and those very elderly people. This forum is held on the basis of our digital lab, Fab Lab. Every year, more and more students and adults, school pupils, express their desire and willingness to participate in this project. Moreover, this year we have prepared a pilot, so we're working not only with school pupils, with students. We have special master's program, the first developed in 2015 on the digital production, and moreover, we have opened our doors for the Muscovites and the guests of Moscow. Everyone can implement the ideas and bring it to life in our digital laboratory. So we're trying to create bilingual environment at our university together with the University of Cambridge. We have developed a special program on the deeper study of instruction in English, and if our students demonstrate high level, they have 2 diplomas graduating from the university. Now we have the students from all the regions of the Russian Federation and from 69 countries of the world. According to the results of Times Ratings 2018, we took the 2nd place on the share of foreign students. This is 24% as of today. And those best practices that we managed to create within the university, we're trying to get them to the field of cooperation with the private sector, with business, to share this experience at the biggest and most interesting educational scientific platform. So within our campus of the House of Comuna, this is the historical monument. So I invite you to visit this place. We created together with the Web Blockchain Technology Center. 1st of October last year, there was an opening ceremony. Every day we see different kind of programs aimed at the talented students and school pupils of the capital. Moreover, together with the government of Moscow, we are implementing a number of projects. For instance, the University of Children, the University Saturdays, or engineering classes. 2015, we started this project. And we have 9 schools as our partners. Now we have 35 partners and 16 other applications. And we're trying to tell academia of Russia and the whole globe about this project, and one of these projects is a platform, the biggest European platform, the conference in the new educational technologies. This year, this conference is going to be held for the 5th time, so I invite you to take part in this conference. This is going to be on the 1st and 2nd of October. Moreover, 2 pre-days on the platform of our university, within the territory of our university. As I have said already, the university is about people, and we see the children who need to determine their professional choice at the age of 17, 18. So, and based on the educational trajectory, they spend from 4 to 10 years in the university. Our task is to develop a creative ecosystem, eco-environment, which would allow not only to get the professional knowledge, skills, competences, not only to get acquainted with the world of science, but to maximally develop their skills and talents, which are among every people, every person, specifically in those students who want to enter the university. And the following step, this year we are making the shaping of the open scientific educational space. This is the joint project with the Park of Gorky and Garage Museum. At the end of this summer, we're going to restore the historical passage from our university to the Park of Gorky. So the forming the open space, we not only open our doors for the new projects for the participants, both in academia and business society, and we're removing the fences to make our single space of the university and the city. The point is that we are cooperating with 1,609 enterprises of businesses of Russia and the world, with many universities around the world. Every university, every enterprise has its competitive advantages, its breakthroughs. So combining our efforts, we are creating new opportunities for our students. Therefore, further on, we are going to try to develop these projects in order to see our children who are going to be responsible for the management decision to maximally prepare for the adult life. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Aleftina Anatolieva. A very interesting presentation. It seems to me that Missy is a very good example of university, of Moscow University, which is developing quite dynamically, which is located in the center of the city. There is a number of projects, terms of cooperation with the city, with the city authorities, with the administration of the city. The single space, city space with the Park of Gorky is going to be a very strong move, which is going to attract fair black, making fair. But overall, we may say that these projects look quite spotty from the perspective of the city administration. And Konstantin Eksaktovich, I would like to ask you a question. The necessary condition for the emergence or for the development of an international level university in general is the appearance of high-quality client who would have smart money, who is going to invest in universities. Getting back to program 500, this is a good example of such high-quality, smart client understanding why and how the university is going to be developed from your perspective. Should this city be such a client for the development of university environment and universities themselves? Thank you. I'm going to answer this question. A brief answer: yes, the city is to be. The longer answer: I'll start with a trivial observation that university in the city, a number of universities, is a system formating element. And the point is not that in Moscow they are the students or the professionals from universities. We should understand that the leading Moscow universities is a major channel of increasing the human capital in Moscow. And we should understand that this channel of increase is not through the educating people in universities, but through the attraction of people to Moscow. If we see how year after year the human capital is increasing in Moscow, so the main channel is that every year hundreds of thousands of the most talented people, talented children come to Moscow universities. This is the element talking about the role of university in the city life. We shouldn't forget about this element. This is not only the place, this is the place where people come to from all different parts of the country. And the professionals in education knows that the selection is a very important thing of creating added value in education, along with education itself. This product of selection is added in Moscow, so the best students come here, and the most appropriate for the development age. Martin demonstrated the map, which had 5 very important cities for the education, and he pointed out Moscow in terms of the pragmatic point of view. There is some principal difference. Not London, not Chicago, not Boston, not San Francisco, not New York, not Zurich. No educational capital of the world is, for most students, is a destination point. People come to this city from all over the world, and they leave to this world, to the country. Even in Great Britain, London-centric country, even in Great Britain, it is not true that people come to one place and stay there for whole life. In Russia, the situation is different. Most people come to Moscow to stay here forever, even if they don't manage to do, all of them manage to do that. That's why this gives a very competitive edge to Moscow universities. And this creates the obstacle as to become the educational capital of the world. To be in the higher league of world education, you need to be the place where the students come to study and live around the world. And it gives the ultimate, non-achievable reason. Moscow universities are going to be strong when we are going to see such a flow, not only in particular professions in MISIS or in Moscow State universities, where we have very strong position traditionally, but when we are going to see the current flow of 50,000 of students from all over the world will come to Moscow, and we're going to see the outflow as well. They are going to work in different countries of the world. Right now, in Moscow, there is a situation that in Moscow we have one and a half universities on international level, but these universities, in terms of the departments, is segregated in different universities. If we take the chemistry, physicist from Moscow State University, mathematical and social science from Russian Moscow School, High School of Economics, for material science includes the mining, what Alevtina Anatolina has said, from missiles and humanitarian programs from Ran Hicks and Russian State University, I need to take the medical area from some universities. That's when we get the comprehensive university. This is 1.5 university, as the physicists are more in their number than we need per one university. At the same time, the reality is that in the city we have more than 100 universities which have different functions. There are universities of like Moscow State University, High School of Economics, playing in the higher leagues of Russian education. There are many higher schools which have absolutely different functions. So for the city, it is very important to have a policy to set right priorities.
So that is not only what best universities we need, but what kind of universities we need competing at one level, at another, and at a third level. And that is a pretty complicated question. It is even a hard question for football, how many teams a city needs. And as for education, it is endlessly more difficult. Still, this hierarchy is an utmost necessity. And this issue is even further aggravated because it is hard to assess the results in universities. Universities are not firms, not companies. They should not make profit, and it will be dangerous to assess them by profit. Meanwhile, it is impossible to support something for the city if there are no KPIs, no clear indicators that we can be based on. And we have seen the program 5100, and that is an exclusively successful program that helped Russian education and became a locomotive for almost a decade in the development of higher education. And there are examples for those who understand it all, and we can see that quantitative indicators resulted in a qualitative divergence of symbols. And I worked for the Ministry of Education back then, and we created a whole industry of fake journals and a lot of other things like that. So if we deal with support, we have to be based on benchmarking with the universities from other countries, peer review, and we should not save money on comprehensive comparison. But I believe that there are also some general measures of urban policy for Moscow and for a city with a large number of universities that are supported by federal and city government. I believe that academic mobility has to be supported and incentivized. Translating it into ordinary language, we have to make universities employ alumni of other universities or forbid to hire their alumni at once. So if a university has a graduate, they should not be able to hire, to employ them. And this policy takes place at the federal level in Germany. It is not an exotic suggestion. What else I believe is important for Moscow government to support competition in the national environment, that is to see to fair competition between universities for Moscow school kids, because Moscow school kids is a huge reserve of talent, and universities compete for them. But there is a fair and healthy competition when universities elaborate good curricula and school kids can choose. And there is bad competition when universities select school kids from seventh grade, and then they retain them, keep them within the schools or lyceums under their universities without letting them go. And I can say that High School of Economics has its lyceum, which is a large school with thousands of pupils, but I checked it out talking with the head of the lyceum, and I learned that if any other university would like to speak about themselves to these pupils, there are no restrictions and no limitations. And I remember earlier days when not all universities were that open, but it should be the general policy for universities. Universities have to compete for school kids fairly. And another last measure that I would like to speak about in terms of cities' support to universities, that is using more academic research in the daily routine work, because city is a huge mechanism that is carrying out a lot of expensive projects, and every time that scientists or scholars' expert appraisal can come in handy, that is a very good source of demand. And on the experience of the University of Chicago, where I work for the major part of the year, I can say that the university cooperates with the city of Chicago in analysis of municipal finance and analysis of crime. That is a very important topic for us. An analysis of crime is not about writing article about crimes, but about elaborating algorithms that the police are using, allocating vehicles and CCTV cameras when they locate police vehicles in certain territories using CCTV information. And they do it in competition. So the city of Chicago, when they order it, they do not say that we will order it to the University of Chicago. Stanford and Harvard and the University of New York can compete for that as well. And the University of Chicago, in analysis of crime and elaborating algorithms of crime, is also a provider to New York mayor's office and others, because we have such a good analysis that is useful everywhere. So demand is important, but it is also important to have fair competition for that demand. Thank you very much, Konstantin. Very interesting and informative conclusions. And I liked one about 1.5 universities of international level in Moscow. Well, we would like them to be more in number. We can say that Moscow State University is in top 100 all global rankings. Well, if we add our social sciences and biomedicine from Higher School of Economics and materials from others, well, there are strong faculties of other universities, but the question is, do you think it will be enough for a modern metropolis, 1.5 universities, or should the city make some systematic efforts to increase this number? I would put it like this. I used the words carefully. The international level is good, but it doesn't mean that we can compete with Chicago, London, Boston, San Francisco, because the universities there are much stronger. But I would say that from my perspective today, the development of Moscow universities is not enough. It is lagging behind the Moscow ambitions. And in many other respects, in infrastructural development and development of spaces, stadia, and so on, That is at a more global level than universities. I totally agree with you, and that is the conclusions that we are driving as well. Now I would like to go back to Dr. Martin. Could you tell us something about the factors of success? How did you manage to create this innovative university cluster and attain the figures that you have voiced? That is really outstanding achievement, billions of US dollars, euro as return on investment. 500,000, you said 500,000 high quality jobs, or as you call it, high value added jobs. That is truly something that Moscow is short of and other regions. So, what was the approach and what are factors of success?
I told already it is a very old university, but we started only thinking about what we call commercialization of research, valorization. And a lot of professors didn't like that at all, and I understand them, because they are academic, they are willing to make the best publications, they like to be at the best conferences in the world, and that's fine, that's great, there's nothing wrong with it. And then in '98, like I said, I came back to Leuven. I lived 20 years in the United States, and I was in love with that country. It's coming down a little bit now these days. I'm looking now to Konstantin. It's coming down a little bit, my good feelings for the United States. But nevertheless, in '98, we had a rector, André Oosterling. And you love the guy and you hate the guy. And he came to see me in Washington, where I was living. He said, Martin, come back, enough with these Yankees. He said, we are going to commercialize that fantastic place, Leuven. There's a lot of good research, but we don't see the spin-offs, we don't see the patents, we don't see the contract research, etc. So I was thinking why the hell I should go back to my old alma mater, but finally I decided. But before I did that, I called him. I said, André, my dear friend, I'm willing to come back, but you have some money on the bank, not to pay my salary, I was not afraid of that, but to put in startups. And he called me back a week later, he said, Martin, I have 25 million euro on the bank. In American terms, it's zero. For us, it was fantastic. So I went back, and we got the first guys coming to us, and we put in some money and so on and so on. But more important was that André Oosterling, the famous rector, said, guys and girls, if it is applied research, I like to see what you said, return on investment. I like to see spin-offs, I like to see better patents, and I like to see contract. And if not, we close the door. So these guys felt from their share, believe it or not, suddenly pushing them to make startups, pushing them to take patents, and so on and so on. So there we are, very small team, and you know already Koen de Bakker and Paul van Deun and myself and so on, sitting there and sitting at an empty table and say, what are we going to do? Because he likes to see return. The most important thing, I think, what we did is we made these top researchers and engineers aware that they could do it. So for me, awareness is the most critical in the whole thing. Of course, the rector who says return on investment, yes. And we said we should make them aware. We tried everything. But the most important thing was that we could say to these engineers and scientists and researchers, we give you a good incentive system. Give you an example, very simple example. We developed a fully incentive system. Give you one example. We take a patent, fantastic. We bring it to the world market, which we did on several occasions. One of the topics was TPA. We brought that to Genentech in California. And they made a multi-billion-dollar product from it. And we got 5% in royalties. Well, a lot of money came in, hundreds of millions. So the professor who developed that molecule said, and what is in for me? And we promised him, not we promised him, we put on paper the first 5 million who comes in, he got 40%. So suddenly that professor is a millionaire in euros, not in rubles. From 5 to 20 million you get 30%, etc., etc. So telling them that they have to perform is one. You make them aware, which we did. We did that very, very well. And we made very clear incentives. If they set up a spin-off, we will give them roughly 25% of the shares. If they have a patent, we give them all the things we just said. If they do contract research, believe it or not, end of the year, there is some money on the bank, the professor gets 50% in his pocket. So, telling them to do it, make them aware, and a clear incentive system. And then it comes. Suddenly you see some success stories. It took us a couple of years. We call that role models. People you can touch. And just by coming in here, I saw Professor Richard Florida. I hope he's not in the room here. He's writing fantastic books on innovation. Fantastic. It's good. For us, the most powerful thing which we have are these role models, the success guys, and the guys who failed. We need those cases, falling in, having success, having not success. People who you can touch, you can feel them. They are real. And today, of course, is a snowball. We have so many success stories. It's beyond belief, beyond belief.
Интересно.
Very interesting. Aleftina, and can you tell us, development of innovative belt around the university is one of the main tasks, both for your university and for others, those that participate in 5100 program. And do you have examples of these role models, like Martin is saying, when startups are created together with the universities and professors turn into entrepreneurs, developing some technological ideas? Thank you very much for your question, Yuri. And what I saw in Leuven University when we visited it is really something fabulous and fantastic. And we are at the very beginning of this path, because they have hundreds of these success stories and small innovative entrepreneurships that have achieved success. But still, we see this task both as challenge and opportunities for the university and for our students. Yes, we are making the first steps only, and as of today, we have somewhat over 30 small innovative entrepreneurships. Some of them are very successful, whereas others are looking for their path. But what I like about it is when our young students and graduates have this opportunity to tackle some large task together with professors. And we have several dozens of examples of this kind, and I will drive you one. I like our small innovative entrepreneurship Carfidel Lab, and two of our masters that yesterday were students took part in innovative projects. I believe that many of you remember the Winter Olympics and the torch that was present there, and it was elaborated in Missis. And these guys calculated mathematical model for this torch from Design Bureau. And one of them, Dmitry Vasilyev, also studied in Skoltech, and then he went to MIT to study for 1 year. And when he returned, I asked him, Dmitry, was the knowledge that you received in our university enough? And he said, yes, it was. And I asked him about the exams that cannot be reset. And he said, no, it is impossible not to pass this exam. You have to do it. And I asked him about human impression, and he said, when I passed an exam excellently, the professor invited him for football, because Russian guys are obsessed with football. So this blurring of a border between the professor and the student, and an opportunity, a chance to learn from the best, enabled him to walk along life in a bold way. And they have worked not for much time, but if you remember, there is a syringe for people who do not have medical skills, and they can make an injection with the syringe in any conditions, and that is a development that has been implemented in Russia, and that were our guys from Karfidov lab who did it. And they also elaborated a coffee machine for a car, and I don't know how important that is, but it was interesting for them, and that is yet another innovation. And as for material sciences, like Konstantin has said, we need to develop biomedicine, and we had a decision that was not an administrative decision of the university. It was born on the initiative of our scientists and students, PhD students who came to our university, and that is a promising and successful area of work, though it is young yet. And we have small innovative entrepreneurship that works in this sphere, and they have some results as well. But we will see the qualitative change in the city and in the country, in our university, first of all, when this critical mass is large. And what we need for that is to elaborate the conditions that would enable current school kids to turn into innovators in 5 or 6 years and change the world for the better. Thank you very much. So there are certain role models turning up, and we can take them as examples and grow and develop using them as a standard. Konstantin, and what do you think Russian universities are lacking in to create this innovative belt of startups and entrepreneurships around themselves? What I heard from Martin, money is needed, but he was not speaking about billions of US dollars. He said 25 million euro, I believe, or US dollars, was enough for the first impetus, so to say. And what means more is this qualitative interaction.
I don't know what you want to hear, that we have a very hard legacy. We should instead the valley in Silicon Valley and the valley around Boston and this valley in the heart of Europe is based on those people who want to have their own business, who want to be engaged in innovations. In Russia, there is less number of people who wants to have their own business. There are more people who want to work in public sector or in big corporates. That's why it is a big problem for universities. I'm not sure that we have real issues connected with the lack of finance. It seems to me that the finance is possible to get, but when we're talking about good projects, we have some difficulties with these good projects. That's why role models are in very high need. So that's why we are very proud of Dmitry Zimin out of the older generation, who directly created his engineering expertise into a billion of wealth. Or Evgeny Chetvarkin, who before he went to London, escaped to London, but we have lack of role models. It's better when we have a number of them. We need to share these models and to be proud of these models, to be impressed with these models, even when they're tiny. Maybe the difference in the cultures, in the mindset exists between Russia and Moscow, including Moscow and Western Europe, particularly the United States. Maybe the universities and programs need to be adjusted, need to be within the special programs for entrepreneurship. Is it enough in our country right now? So the universities, first of all, are very high conductor of thinking independently to keep your eyes open. For example, we're talking about the heavy burden of our legacy. The legacy is among the scientists that most scientists 50 years ago published in institutions newspapers and magazines, and they didn't think that your colleagues get to know about your article and to get quoted. So the Russian scientists are learning very fast, at a very fast pace. So over decades, the level of those quotes was less than the global industries, even those industries when we achieved much. Those were lower than it was supposed to be. Now we see the flattening situation. We cannot say that we don't have unquoted or underquoted genius. And 20 years ago, you could show people who were genius, who made great breakthroughs, but nobody was quoting them because they published in the institution or university magazines. And in this respect, universities today are the conductor and are going to be conducting in the future. I don't have enthusiasm about the courses of entrepreneurship because there is not any law in place that the best way to be independent to listen to the course of the independence, actually. So you learn to be an entrepreneur when you learn the history of the world culture. Everything which teaches you to be open, to cooperate, interact with the open world, those courses which require fast adaptation of the renewed knowledge, that is what should be in the course of entrepreneurship. Thank you. And the concluding answer to Martin. So maybe success of the Levin University be replicated in Moscow, in Russia, and how much time it would take from your perspective in Moscow, for instance. Of course, not talking about the figures which you presented, but strategically, is it possible to achieve such success, and how much time we would require from a perspective?
To believe. If you tell me yes, but the best thing which ever came to me was when I came back to Leuven 20 years ago, and we had a dinner with the CEO of Philips, Kleisterlee, that evening, and he said, "Martin, why the hell you came back to Europe? And you have a group here who will always say yes, but very important is that you believe what you are willing to do. And the yes, but guys, I just hate them. It's yes or no, but don't say yes and then give 10 reasons not to do it. You have to do it." And I put just a figure here in front of me. The new economy which we are sitting in is driven by knowledge, point. There is no discussion. We are not going back to assemble cars or make steel plates or make textile. That game is over. And I'm pretty sure that Russia knows that very, very well. I was listening to your president today. I was listening to the mayor of the city. You have clearly decided that you will go into the knowledge economy. Knowledge economy today is in R&D 2.3 trillion of the 75 trillion GDP. That's a lot of money, but the bad news is, or the good news is, that it is in very distinct regions. Silicon Valley, Boston, Texas, Leuven, Elat, and you like to be in that game, Moscow. And I'm pretty sure you can do it. I saw in the last 7 years that I'm coming to Moscow, an enormous progress. So the will is there. I think the money is not an issue. Money is there. I'm pretty sure that you can do it. Like you said, there is a lot of talent. There are a couple of things missing, and you said it and I said it, the role models. Once you have a couple of role models, the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. And I am a strong believer that Moscow becomes that mega city, a knowledge-driven economy. I'm 100% sure. How long will it take? Your question. I'm not going to tell that because then everybody runs out of the room. But let me give the figures for Leuven. In the first 5 years, once again, I came back in '98 with a small team, blah, blah, blah. It took us 5 years to get a very solid nucleus. We were really knowing at that time, I think you are there already in Moscow, a nucleus. It took us another 5 years to make these famous clusters. Now we got visibility. Wow, everybody saw us. Now we are 20 years old and we have our own big companies. So 20 years is the answer.
Тут 20
You know, 20 years is quite a big period of time. We'd like it to be a little bit faster. I'm be optimistic so fast, so 20 years so fast. That's what optimistic for me.
Of things in that meantime, but I'm just thinking and looking to Moscow and to Russia in more specific. You were spoiled with oil and gas and minerals. That's your problem. Money came in easily, and then in 2011, Medvedev and Putin said we have to turn more and more into this knowledge-driven economy. Fantastic, but it will take time to come out of that. And once again, what you like to have in Russia and in Moscow are companies like we have in Europe, the Intels, the Siemens, the Philips. You have, of course, these Rosatoms and all that kind of companies, but that's not what you are looking for. You are looking for modern technology companies. That takes some time, believe me, that takes some time.
ну, некоторые
You know, some of these companies are still already the question about the scale of their presence on our market. So, dear colleagues, maybe we have any questions from the audience to the participants of our discussion. Mic to the speaker, please. The interpretation without the microphone is not possible. The point is that the main problem is the low demand for innovations. I have a concrete example. I'm the director of an innovation company which is promoting the energy efficient technologies. MEISIS is preparing for the specialists on the technology which is in the list of innovative programs for the city, but it is not being integrated. It is blocked due to lobbyism of our corporations. And when we are going to overcome these barriers, we're talking much, but we're not doing the talking. So every institution will be able to have 10 or 20 companies. They do have technologies. If we are not going to get them to other countries, as in our technologies in Japan, there is this exact product. We can take this product from Japan or produce it on our own and get it to the exhibition. It's called FIDO. It's special lubricating gel. So it seems to me that Konstantin Isakovich was talking about that. So on the part of the city, we need to have so-called order for innovations, so-called procurement for innovations. I would be able to conclude that innovation, the order for innovation projects, but shouldn't the city, like Moscow or any other megacity, have an inner program like 5100, which would allow, according to some criteria, develop their own universities? That might be the question. So, mic to the audience, please. I have the mic. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. I have a question concerning the governance of the management system of the higher education. We're talking about the combination of city and university in Russia. It is very important to say about the federal subjectivity. 90% of our universities are in the federal management. Only in Moscow, in Tatarstan, Moscow region, there are some regional universities. Do you see any indirect or hidden tools how to build up this cooperation and interaction? I'm sure that it is the thing to exist, how to build it up in Moscow and other cities under the federalism of higher education management, where to find those management drivers, financial drivers for the combination of city and university. San Antonio, maybe you're going to answer this question. It seems to me that we don't see any gap. So what subjectivity of the university should be, what it should be subject to, or under the auspices of region or the state. We need to have the will to create the joint projects and joint programs. I talked about it within my presentations of those joint projects which we are implementing together with the of Moscow. These are mostly educational programs. There are some scientific and research projects, but these are the projects, and if we are able to combine them into a single program, into a system, which was mentioned by Yuri, so the positive effect is going to be bigger, not only for the universities, but for our students and for our school pupils. As at the round table, it was said already that the city, the country, and the globe itself is going to benefit from that. We need to communicate. We need to meet us halfway, each other halfway, to open the doors, and not to be afraid of competition in a very tough sphere, a very tough environment, which we have managed to learn how to do, and to keep on developing the cooperation and interaction. And there are going to be new opportunities based on that for our students. That is the challenge we need to undertake and to solve this task. So the solution is not in a hierarchical system. It's supposed to be a system program of cooperation and interaction. That would be your answer. May I ask the question? Martin, as I understand, any innovation is investment of the university, of the company, huge investment of the team which is working on that. How is it reasonable, economically feasible, 40% to give to one scientist, as it's not only his own contribution?
You mean 40% in the patent? The patent is 100% owned by the universities. I think it's the same thing in the United States, it's the same thing in Russia. To become a role model there, you have to show that the professor will get some money out of it himself. So we give him, for the first 5 million, 40%. Fantastic. If I'm looking now to these professors who really made a lot of money, they did an enormous return back to the community. For example, they became venture capitalists. Of course, they have a nice villa in a nice apartment in London and a beautiful villa in Spain, whatever. Why not? But they mostly bring back the money to that community, not necessarily the university. They can mention a couple of guys who put in hundreds of millions in their own VC thing. And they become, in fact, serial entrepreneur, believe it or not. So it's not only in their pocket, not at all. They became rich, yes, definitely, why not? There's nothing wrong with that. But they bring back a lot to the community, to the region.
So sorry, I lost my voice during the football match. I'm French, okay, so we are. So, okay, it was. I like very much, of course, all the story. I'm living here for 12 years in Russia. And I observe the difference, of course, of different countries. In particular, I look that we have a French president supporting very much French tech and supporting also private initiative, like Station F in France. I don't know what will be the result at the end of the day, but it's a massive investment, massive dynamic, and it's not from university. So I would like to understand what are we waiting for in Russia to join our effort, because I see always a lot of talent in Russia disappointed, and looking forward to find another way where Russia is a fantastic country. I'm living myself.
Sorry, the question is, what are we waiting for in terms of what?
Are you waiting for to create a private also initiative in Mexico, but it was state company again? So why we don't have a Station F? Why we don't have more strong power to keep our talent, to give the dynamic of success here?
То есть фактически...
Why they are successful here and why we have here so much to do and we are not delivering?
Unfortunately, I didn't understand the question. I believe that the part of the question is that why we don't develop such corporates, private business. Skolkovo is a state corporate, and many universities in our country are mostly public. If there are private universities, they don't have this level. Why shouldn't we try to develop the private university, which are the most leading university of America, for instance? We should understand that the United States is a very exceptional country in this respect. I do understand that this exception where these 8 best universities out of 10 global universities are located in the United States, but totally private universities is not a common thing on the global arena as it might seem. In Russia, we have example of private universities, Russian Economic School, Moscow School of Higher Social Economic Studies, European Institute in St. Petersburg. And it would be great if we had more private universities and colleges of high level. But this is very difficult. And in Russia, we don't have any experience of public support of private universities. I wouldn't say that we're not trying to do that. It was a great breakthrough over the last years that now private universities have the scholarship from the federal budget, but these are small, tiny steps on the path where it will take long enough. So, in fact, yes, but in practice, we're still far away from this. The answer, it is being done. We are trying to put our effort into this. We haven't created something big like Harvard or Stanford. Dear guests and friends, so it's high time we concluded our roundtable. If you have any questions, so please ask them in person. So thank you very much, all the distinguished participants. It seemed to me that we had a very interesting discussion with our roundtable.